Today is Wednesday, November the 16th, 2022. We are here for a school board workshop. The time is 12 p.m. The business of the workshop today is, one is the Hurricane Ian Recovery Community Update. And then next will be the agenda review of the November 2022 regular agenda. Also, I would like to note that Dr. Cupid McCoy is sitting in today for Dr. Bernier. We're glad to have you with us today. Thank you very much. And we will go ahead and begin today with the Hurricane Ian recovery, and I believe that's going to be Mr. Ramirez.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, School Board, Dr. Cupid McCoy, Attorney Kathy Dupree Bruno as well. So great to be here this afternoon with you. The purpose of this afternoon is really to provide you an update around the community update regarding Hurricane Ian. We're also going to dive in just very briefly into Hurricane Nicole that we actually experienced last week. So again, purpose is to provide that update related to the district's recovery efforts following Hurricane Ian, but I also want to provide just a few components that we just team worked on for Hurricane Nicole. As I shared, we'll talk Hurricane Nicole impact. We'll also share an update on Imperium presentation that was shared with our executive team with Cabinet last week that will be coming before the board. Some continued school engagement, Hector Caffaretta update, as well as emergency grant funding as well. As it relates to Hurricane Nicole impact, I think it's important to note as we pivoted and worked on that last week, we working with the district, with Lee County's Emergency Operations Center, as well as our own Lee County recovery team, worked significantly to be prepared to receive the impacts of what potential impacts could have happened with Hurricane Nicole. Just as an after action report around that, district operations, as everyone knows, we closed school on November the 10th. School buildings were impacted. We had a process following the storm where we actually, our maintenance team went out to every single school and inspected schools to ensure that there was to assess damage. That was done by our maintenance team, so tremendous appreciation to the teams that went out immediately after the storm to check on that process. So I just want to name, so the hours in delay where we knew potentially we were going to be returning to school, that delay was simply ensuring that all of our schools had been assessed and we were able to safely open for Thursday. Minor damage sustained, but there was no damage that obviously precluded us from opening the school, and we returned to regular operations on Thursday. Imperium presentation, just want to share, Imperium is our FEMA consultant that we've been working with since pre-storm that we stood up. Our business services team has been working diligently with the consultants, assisting us with claim preparation as well as recovery, both insurance and FEMA reimbursement. We had a presentation on Friday of last week. We were briefed by the Imperium representatives specific to damages and assessments and our next steps. We are in the process of scheduling an upcoming presentation to the board in December that will share just all of the steps, and we'll have our Imperium consultants here as well to be sharing that information. So just wanted to name that, but really preparing for, this is the long term, so we're working on the immediate, obviously working on the next, and then when we talk about this long range of what do the next 2, 3, 4, 8 months look like following, so you'll get more on that, so you could expect an upcoming presentation in a December workshop around that. School engagement continues, particularly with our 3 most impacted schools, Fort Myers Beach Elementary, Hector Caffaretta, and the Sanibel School. I am happy to report that this afternoon, Sanibel teachers will be going out to Sanibel. We have buses picking them up at San Carlos Park, and they'll be going out to the school to walk the school and have that opportunity to do so. We had been scheduling that. It was supposed to happen prior, but due to Hurricane Nicole and those preparations, there was a slight delay. But this afternoon, there'll be buses at the bus ramp at San Carlos Park at 2:45, picking up teachers and taking them over at 3 o'clock. Also want to note that we'll also have some supports. Our mental health teams will be actually on the buses with the teachers as well as we go through, and just processing and having been to the school, be important to have that. So as our staff and our teachers process as they see the damage in the school, most have not seen it since the storm. So that'll be important. So that's happening today. So just wanted to name that. Look forward to, maybe some pictures that we'll be able to share for those events as well. And as it relates to Hector Cafferata, I'll give an update on the next slide. And with Fort Myers Beach, the engagement continues. We, on Friday of last week, shared with the Fort Myers Beach community just some of the proposed possibilities. Want to continue to be clear with community that there's no decision has been made as it relates to Fort Myers Beach. We're trying to do our due diligence, working with every potential partner around getting as much information as you can before we present potential options for Fort Myers Beach as well, including the Historic Society that we reached out to and have provided us some information. So more to come, but just wanted to provide that update as well. And those meetings continue to go on, obviously, in the coming weeks after, we have the break next week, but following that into December, we will continue. We're committed to having those weekly communications with all 3 of those communities as we provide updates as far as their status as well. Hector Cafferata update. Again, tremendous appreciation to this board for the bold action taken around the commitment to the temporary campus. As it was approved, I guess it was almost 2 weeks ago. It seems like it was months ago, but progress has been made. Construction is progressing to meet the December 5th completion date. I just want to name that the completion date is just as, and if I can use the example of when you buy a house, when it's complete, they give you the keys, but there's a lot of work as far as moving stuff. Obviously, furniture for classrooms will be there, but there's a lot of preparation around from that December 5th date, transitioning teachers over, getting classrooms prepared. So we have begun, and we have some preliminary conversations this week. We have pre-planning meetings that are happening around what that transition will look like. But the site work is underway. Portable buildings have started to arrive. That is a picture of one of the portables that arrived this week. I believe it was yesterday, the day before. The kitchen and dining buildings are being installed today. And as I mentioned, the transition pre-planning work with academic services, our executive director working with the school leader, with the principal around just what does that look like, mapping out, what portable is going to be what classroom and ensuring that the right, there's a lot of coordinated efforts. So we are treating this process similar to when we open a brand new school. I mean, same process, having these pre-meetings, making sure all the right folks are at the table, technology, obviously school leadership, maintenance, all the different moving parts to ensure that transition is a smooth one. And just as it relates to emergency grant funds, happy to share that the grant process, which is the Florida Disaster Fund, that process was rolled out last week. The window there, as you see, is November 9th through the 23rd. And working with the Foundation for Lee County Public Schools. The foundation has been incredible, just working with developing the criteria, working together on that. The funds are up to $5,000 that teachers and staff can receive as they submit applications. So that is a process that's actually currently underway. The prioritization is around housing and transportation. So, those affected with housing, as well as those that don't have vehicles and transportation to get to work, is a prioritization. They can categorize that as they fill out the application for that. And then grant process B, which is the bigger Hurricane Ian Relief Fund, is what I'll share. That has not been rolled out yet, still working with the foundation. The one piece I want to just make a note there that there's been an intention to focus that student needs will be attempted to be addressing as well, where students potentially may be able to apply to that process as well. So more to come on that, but just wanted to name that has not been rolled out, still working on those particular pieces. But as far as the grant funds, just wanted to name that as well. And with that being said, those are that's the update that we have for this session. I will turn it over to Chair Jordan.
Well, Dr. Cupit McCoy, did you have any comments before I go to the members?
Chair Gordon, no comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms. Gittens, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon. You guys have been busy as bees. You've done a lot since the last time you told us what you were doing. And I was just curious. I don't know if we have this, but when you mentioned the Sanibel teachers going and the mental health professionals going along with them, that's a fabulous idea, because at first look, sometimes it's pretty difficult. And I was just wondering, and I'm just throwing this out there, have we seen overall an increase in using our mental health professionals in our schools and in, other areas? And maybe that's something you can get back to the board on, but I know we've talked about the need for it, and I'm just always wondering, are people exercising the use of it with children and all that, and how that works,
We can be sure. I know we have seen some particular, impacts, but we'll be sure to provide a board update around. We'll reach out to appropriate staff to get like what we're seeing as far as the data is telling us around, reports and the counseling. I know that we've launched a number of different opportunities for staff and for students to engage, and obviously community parents around like counseling groups and things of that nature. But we'll have an update we'll provide a board update. We'll have staff do the appropriate work on that.
So we're both, in other words, reaching out and let people reach to us as well. And that's what I was concerned about, the reaching out piece. Because sometimes, especially with even children, they don't know to reach out. So it would just be interesting to see how that works and what we're doing to make sure it does happen.
We'll get that data.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
On the foundation, so it says housing and transportation will be prioritized. So if you have a teacher who's been able to clean his house up to the extent that he can live in it, but is like sleeping on an air mattress, is that person going to qualify for any of these funds, or is it just those who are homeless and without cars?
Yeah, I think so. In the current process that exists, there'll be a rubric as they score the application. So all of those pieces, they'll be weighed a little differently around that, but there'll be opportunities, to be able to support based on the need that's there. So it wouldn't totally exclude, but obviously a prioritization around, with housing and transportation, and then that particular situation may merit more as we look at the rubric to score it.
Okay, but that person might be eligible for something through the
Right.
fund?
Yes.
Okay, and then my other question was surrounding Fort Myers Beach. You know that we've received an uptick, and if I may thank Ms. Morgan for responding to those emails.
Yes.
Thank you. We've received an uptick in communication from families impacted by Fort Myers Beach. I'm wondering if there's a way to know whether those parents are attending those meetings. If not, have we reached out specifically to invite them to those meetings? And then the question the theme, an issue that seems to be a theme through all of those emails is you guys are doing absolutely nothing. You are leaving that building to rot so that it has to be condemned. And I know that's not true, but if there's a way that we could communicate that more clearly to the group impacted, those are my comments.
Absolutely. We will do that. We actually provided an update to the Fort Myers Beach via written communication, and we had to postpone Friday's meeting due to Dr. Bernier being out of town. We have committed and rescheduled for Monday. So Monday we'll have a meeting with the Fort Myers Beach community, and the conversation will continue on. I know Dr. Bernier has shared, in previous updates around where the current status is. We did share, as I mentioned, all options that are being explored, with no decision decision will come to this board and working through that. But we'll provide that update.
And those individuals, as the superintendent's office or a member of his staff responds to those emails, are they being specifically invited to attend those meetings?
Yeah, so we'll work through that and ensure that we're trying to connect who's there and who's not around that. So obviously so we'll take that and I'll work with Dr. Malloy, who's been leading that effort as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Fisher?
Yes, thank you. So with the Fort Myers Beach situation, you have discussed with the Fort Myers Beach city people all of the options, and yet no decision has been made. My question is, will some of the residents who have reached out be part of that decision-making process?
So the commitment is to engage as we have these discussions, to ensure that we engage the Fort Myers Beach community in those conversations around that. And it's also important to know, elected officials were just appointed this week. I know Dr. Carlin has reached out to set up meetings with Dr. Bernier, and staff to kind of provide updates and talk about, to ensure that we are working together as we come up with the potential solutions.
Right, yeah, because it sounded like the consensus on Fort Myers Beach is that they really don't want to lose their school. And I know that in the options, there are ways that does not have to happen. But, yeah, I just want to make sure that the community is part of the decision-making process.
And all options will be explored, and they will be brought before this board and it would ultimately a recommendation from the superintendent.
Thank you.
I think too, Mr. Ramirez, if you will please tell them, the citizens of the community, the Fort Myers Beach family of the school, they have been part of this conversation, correct?
So the Fort Myers Beach, so we've established a core group that represents the larger group of school that we meet every Friday. Board Member Patrica, you referenced the uptick in concerns. On last Friday, Dr. Bernier shared all of the potential options that could, that exist that we're actually exploring. Some of those options gained a little bit more traction, from community around their desire to either support or advocate against in that process. But all were explored, as well as commitments around, just the financial components of it, as well as the numbers that we currently see at the school. But again, I want to continue to reiterate, no decision has been made. We want to continue to explore that. And to Ms. Patrica, the response that you shared earlier around just the building cannot be getting worse. I mean, the commitment is there to explore what can we do. We've secured it from that perspective. And then obviously the decision point will then necessitate what are the next steps with the building.
Go ahead.
I think you just gave me an answer that I wasn't aware of. So this is not like sign into a meeting and anybody that wants to be there can be there. This is a small group that's sort of representing the larger group. Right. So inviting these people who have emailed us is obviously not an option. But is there a way to perhaps record that meeting so that everybody can be aware of the information that's shared there? Because I do think that the telephone game is occurring. Sure. And some misinformation is being shared, not on purpose. They've got a lot going on in their lives, and I can't expect anybody to be the appropriate messenger other than us.
Correct. So
just a way to make sure that these people are all receiving the same information would be great.
We will explore that option and work in what the potentials, may be with that. Obviously, it's in an effort to really communicate as much as we can around where we currently are with that. I think in certain cases, just knowing a couple of instances, individuals that were attending, relatives of that individual reached out because, either husband shared with wife or, some of that. So we're trying to be as inclusive as possible, but the intent was to not have, and we did the same with Hector Cafaretta. Our initial meeting was very large, and then we narrowed it down just so that we can control. It's easier to get questions when you have 10, 12 people rather than 120 people on a call to kind of get and go. So just trying to definitely not exclude, and you can anticipate moving forward as we have more engagement with the community. It will not be relegated to just this small group. This is our two-way communication that we're trying to get, but as we continue to move forward with plans, there'll be much more dialogue that will happen.
And so then also with the teachers, how the teachers, and it is the haves and haves not. I know that conversation is kind of happening in Sanibel versus Fort Myers Beach. So will they be able to, the teachers of Fort Myers Beach be able to go in? I know that the water went all through that school, but would they still have that opportunity as the Sanibel group will be able to go into their school? Will they also have that opportunity to go into the Fort Myers Beach one? I mean, is it safe enough for them to walk in there?
Thanks for naming that. I know it is difficult. It is not, as we're trying to, and we certainly are not trying to create an experience where there's, you know, those that, you know, the haves versus have not. Obviously trying to be really thoughtful and safe to do so. That is a request that we received. We're trying to explore what other options we can do around that. You know, having myself been on that campus, but not actually gone into buildings, because knowing they are locked and just, there's a lot that's happening within. But we did get personal items, you know, through the professionals, help attain some personal items that we want to make sure that we're, you know, working through to try to get that. We have those lists as well, so we'll be able to work that as well. So definitely something we continue to explore, to be able to provide that opportunity similar to the faculties at both Hector Cafferata and Sanibel that have been able to do that. Sanibel obviously happening today.
Great, thank you. Ms. Gianelli?
Thank you. So how many students is in attendance right now for Fort Myers Beach? What is our number now?
So I don't want to misquote the wrong number. I know we were about 50 students is about the number that we had. And, you know, I know it fluctuates a little here and there, so we have seen a decline. We do recognize that some might have gone away and may come back around that, but that is the current number. But that number isn't necessarily driving any and all decisions, but that is a reality of what we currently have at the school.
Total attendance. Okay, thank you.
And I'm going to change the subject for 1 second. So the grant proposal, or the process, that's from November 9th through the 23rd. We're at the 22nd right now. So how many grants have been given thus far? Do we even know how many have been given out of the 5,000?
How many have been awarded?
How many have been awarded? Because it's from the 9th through the 23rd, and we are at the 22nd.
I don't want to misspeak. I believe process is it'll close, and then the foundation has a board that will be reviewing the grants, and then we will be awarding shortly thereafter. So, but we will provide an update if any have been awarded prior to. We'll make sure by Friday we'll provide that clarification, the board update.
Okay, and then so also, how are people being notified that they do have this option to go through this process to even get that help? Do we know how
So
that's being even?
communication did go out, because obviously it's for Lee County employees. That information went out around that. It was announced, obviously, President Marshall put out that information a couple of weeks back. We sent it out. There was a joint video that was done as well to get that information out with the foundation and with Dr. Bernier as well. So that's how it was initially rolled out, and we're continuing to gather all of that. And then the foundation has a committee that will be looking at those application processes. We'll provide more specific details in the board update so we can answer any particular questions and provide additional clarification in next week's update related to this topic as well.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to say, so if anyone out there is in need of this, tomorrow is your last day to apply for this, because it's over on the 23rd, correct?
That window for this particular process, there's two different grants. You know, this is specific to, you know, the First Lady of the Sanctus and that work.
Right.
But this first layer of grant is one. There's a secondary opportunity as well to exclude. So folks that may not receive something, this is the second wave that will come, where maybe that will be where potentially something could happen as well. But tomorrow's the deadline so.
Okay. Yes.
The 23rd?
Tomorrow's the 23rd.
No, it's next week.
Oh, geez.
So
I'm
16.
looking at, I apologize.
You're
I'm
a week
a week
ahead.
ahead of time.
Yeah, you're a week ahead, so.
I'm looking at my date on here, so I apologize. Thank you, Ms. Morgan, for helping me out there.
Wednesday-
I'm having a moment.
The Wednesday before we break for Thanksgiving break.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity who needs this. So, okay, so you have a week. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay.
You're welcome.
So we are moving on to the next item, which is Dr. Cubit McCoy for the agenda review.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Attorney Dupree Bruno. As it relates to the agenda consent business items, letter J6, there are two questions. And question one has multiple parts, and I'd like to respond to each of those individually.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First question. Have we reached out to the local property appraiser and tax collector? We've been in contact with the property appraiser and the tax collector's office. Subsection B of this question. If so, what do they anticipate our shortfall to be? At this time, they do not know what the shortfall may be. They're currently reviewing prior storm photos to after storm photos to determine what the losses may be. This also depends on how many people apply for abatement programs if they're approved. Part B. Do we have an idea on the amount of state and federal relief as to what that might be? We do not have an amount on how much we will receive from the state or the federal government. Subsection C. If not, should we wait on that information before determining such a large amount? This is a line of credit that has to do with our cash flow. And normally, we receive our tax dollars, which is about 60% of our revenue, starting in November, with the largest amount usually received in the month of December. With the delay in tax going out to the Lee County taxpayers, we expect that there will be a delay in receipt of these funds. So we need to ensure that we have the cash needed to cover our payroll, which is approximately $60 million a month. And our accounts payable expenses, and that ranges from about 16 to 48 million a month, while we're waiting for the local tax funds to come in. So this will allow us to have the cash needed if needed. Part D. Do we have a plan to have parameters on the usage or draw on the loan? Response: the draws will be to cover the operating expenses, and we will only take draws as needed. We will need to follow the guidelines from the bank that have a minimum draw of $100,000 and a maximum of 2 draws per month. Subsection E, what will the payments have to be paid off in order to repay this? The repayment of the funds used in the line of credit has to be paid off by June 30th, 2023. We pay the funds in interest by June 30th, 2023. Madam Chair?
Thank you, Ms. Giovanelli. These were your questions. I know Dr. Desamore is here, and I know she went over all of this with all of us. Is there any other questions that has not been answered or that you need clarification?
Yes, I need to know who they actually spoke to at the property appraiser and tax collector's office, who the individuals were, please. Thank you.
Dr. Cooper, do we have that information?
Madam Chair, I do not have that information with me. However, I will get that information from Ms. Desamore and provide that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and Ms. Giovanelli, is there any other?
No, thank you.
Okay, and then Ms. Fisher?
Yeah, would it be appropriate for Dr. Desamore to address this right now? I think she.
Yeah,
may have the
that would be,
information.
is that okay with you, Dr. Cupid McCoy?
Madam Chair, if it pleases the board, Ms. Desamore? Dr. Desamore, my correction.
Good afternoon, Dr. Desamore, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you have to push the button? Are you?
Can you hear me all right?
I can, but I'm not sure if everybody else can.
There's no light. It's not on, Dr. Desmore.
Walk around here. Oh. And in the meantime, as Dr. Desamore is walking up there, are there any other questions that, think about if you have any other questions that you may have to ask of her?
Well, there's enough question here.
Yeah, we have, Dr. Cuba McCoy has not responded to that question yet. She's on the first one, which was yours.
All right, how about now?
Yes, perfect, thank you.
Very good. Good afternoon. Dr. Cuban McCoy, members of the board. You wanted me to address the question of who specifically we spoke to at the property appraiser's office. I do know that we received communication from I believe her name is Nancy Earp. I'm not sure if there were other individuals, so I will have to double check that and make sure.
Ms. Giovanelli?
So is Ms. Earp from the property appraisers or the tax collectors? That's why I'm trying to figure out what department to. Do we know?
So I guess it would be, who would be the money, we're looking at the money regarding, I think that you had mentioned that the tax rolls, it has not gone out yet, so that would be who? To collect the money? When you were speaking to us?
So there's a couple of different pieces of the process. So the property appraiser certifies the roll. Since we have spoken, the roll has been certified. Then, to my knowledge, the tax collector sends out the bills. That is the portion that, to my knowledge, at this point has not happened. Now, that is our understanding of the process as it had been recounted to us.
Ms. Giovanelli, do you have any?
So Nancy Earp works for property appraiser or tax collector?
I'll have to confirm that for you and get back to you.
Thank you.
But as she said, there's two pieces to this puzzle. The property appraiser does one part of it, and then it goes to the second one, and then they do the rest, and that's where the funds come from.
Yeah, that is our understanding, yep. Mhm.
Just want to make sure that that's clear. Ms. Fisher, did you have any?
Well, I was just, when I read through that, I just noticed that they noticed us, that there was going to be a delay because of the hurricane. I mean, so it's kind of hard to put a definite amount, but we do need the money to continue our operating expenses. So I don't know if those questions really can be answered completely at this point in time until we hear more from the tax collector's office.
Go ahead, Ms. Giovanelli, and then Ms. Patrica.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I was just going to answer the question that you were asking. So Nancy Earp is with the property appraiser's office.
Great, thank you. So the 60 million a month, that's payroll, right? Just trying to get an idea of how much we're going to use of this 250 million. And then the other is between 16 and 48 million. That's fluctuates, it sounds like, right?
Yes, it does. It depends on invoices that come through and what they come through for, so yes.
And so then you anticipate to have all the tax collected by June to pay it back off, right?
That is what we anticipate at this time, yes.
Right. I just want to like convey that out so people understand what the actual plan is. Okay, so will you be making, is the plan to make the 2 draws a month or one lump every month to meet the payroll and the expenses that we have?
Well, the plan is to make the draw as necessary. So in other words, if some great thing happens and we end up getting property tax collections in December, there may be 0 draw that's made. So it just depends on what the circumstances are and what other cash flows we have flowing in to say we have to analyze it every 2 weeks, every month to say, do we need something? And if we need something, what is it that we need? Max, it would be 2 draws per month as basically the credit structure is basically structured.
Okay, if we were to put parameters on it to know when you're using this line, so we're aware, what would be your recommendation? What would be, because otherwise it's just like an open line of credit and y'all would not tell the board when you were drawing on it, right? I mean, not normal, that's not, normally you wouldn't, right?
Well, when you say normally we wouldn't, this wouldn't look like a typical structure of what we would normally do, right? So even in the past when we would take a tax anticipation note, it would be an amount that we would just get, upfront at that period of time. This is something completely different. So yes, absent any other instructions, we would not necessarily inform you when we were taking a draw, we would just take it. But if the instruction would be that the board would want to know when we took a draw, then we would, update the board on the draw, say through a board, the weekly update or something to that effect. But absent any direction to do so, we wouldn't typically say when we took it, no.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Patrica, you have a question?
Yes, my next, no, I didn't have, I was going to answer the ERP question. Nancy Earp. I did a Google search and
Oh, okay.
LinkedIn shows where she works.
Okay, did anyone else have a question, though, for Dr. Desmore? Ms. Gittens?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure, so the TAN loan would be because, there in case we need it, but is there a specific list of things that defines that need? In other words, if we need it for this, this, or this, or is it open, the need? And how is that determined? Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay.
So the need is operational expenditure. Is the need, and whether we draw it down or not is based on what cash flows look like at that point in time. Because typically we would have cash in the bank based on the property tax collections that we would be receiving. Absent those property tax collections, then we're absent the cash, if that tracks. The budget is there, but the cash is not there because the collections didn't happen as intended. So part of the function, right, of our treasury area is to track our cash flows to the budget and determine, based on the inflows and the outflows, are we sufficient with cash? Are all the checks basically going to, basically clear? Rule number 1, no checks bounced, right?
Right.
So based on that analysis of what cash is in the bank versus the anticipated outflows over a period of time, that is what determines, do we need a draw or do we not need a draw?
So the anticipated outcome goes both ways, because that anticipated is how much property tax are we going to get? So my question, if we have this draw available and we're looking at paying back whatever part we use in the future based on how much property tax and all we get, is that correct? So in other words, it's kind of iffy, not saying that we shouldn't do it, but it's kind of a, iffy game because we don't know if we're going to get enough property tax to pay it all back.
No, not iffy in this sense, because when we look at what the property tax revenue budget was, right, before,
Okay, so that's what it's
before all
based on.
chaos broke loose.
Right.
We're talking around between the two areas, and when I say two areas, I'm talking about capital and operating. When we talk about the amount of property tax revenue we anticipated to come in for FY '23, $521 million worth of property tax revenue in the general fund, and then another $192 million in the capital fund. What we're talking about here is a line of credit or tax anticipation note of $250 million, is half of that. So this isn't, so it's not like we're trying to borrow up to the hilt. We're saying that we're trying to hedge a little bit on that cash that we need for really less than half of what we expect. So regardless of what happens in the future, we don't anticipate that we are going to be out more than half of what our anticipated property tax revenue was. So
Okay.
part of the balance there was determining what really is the needed amount to borrow at this point and the safe amount to borrow, knowing that it's a short-term proposition. We need to be able to pay it back by June 30th. It should be what we anticipate we're going to really need to use. So there's a couple of different things that happen at the same time. We have to mitigate expenses now, right? So we have to, the budget that we originally anticipated may not be what it is, so we have to make sure that we're adjusting our plan for the future so that we come into alignment with whatever it is it's going to be at the end of the day, which right now there's a lot of question marks on that, of course. None of us can say what that is, but certainly we're planning for an impact, planning for the future, and this amount that we're borrowing is less than half of what we would have expected.
Okay, and is there an option in this, let's say by June, we haven't gotten all the taxes that we need, we had to, I mean, worst case scenario, we had to use it, and we haven't gotten all of that, we haven't gotten reimbursed from whatever, is there an option to extend it? Or is it a set period of time?
The way we structured it at this point is a set period of time.
Okay.
For various reasons, including in statute of why not taking out your short-term borrowing past your fiscal year. So we have structured and really planned for that payback as of June 30th of 2023.
Awesome, okay. Thank you very much, I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you, Dr. Desamore. And again, I just want to stress the fact that I know that you had briefed all of us on this, even though there are some other questions, we have all been briefed on this with opportunities to have conversations with you, as well as, I believe, the newly elected board members as well. So I just wanted to put that out there, and I thank you for doing that for us, to give us that knowledge. I'm going to go ahead, Ms. Gittens.
Okay, I just want to make a comment to what you just said. Many times, and I've said this before, if I personally have received information and I understand it and I've asked questions, I think that it's just our duty to the public to ask questions and to make sure that they understand what's happening with their tax money as well. So it's not that I think the board members have already been talked to, but we're up here representing the public, and they need to be able to understand as well. So thank you.
No, and thank you for saying that. I just wanted to make sure that people understand that we have heard this, so we're not just up here not asking questions, or that we're not knowledgeable of what has already been told to us, just for clarification on that end. Moving on, Dr., if you will just stay there just another minute, just in case we have another question. Dr. Cubit McCoy, for the next one, I'm not sure if that was the correct question that was asked.
Right.
So,
If I
Ms.
may.
Chris Patrica?
Yeah, I have a series of questions that I know Dr. Desamores is working to get back to all of us in the board member update on Friday. So this one question really doesn't do me any good without the context of the other answers, and I know she's still researching them. So it really doesn't make any sense to even go here at this point.
Okay, so the question that, for Dr. Cubit McCoy, did we receive any fix? You do not need that to be answered at this time?
Not today, no.
Okay. So we would not need to answer that last question that you have on your list,
Madam Chair.
unless you want to answer that.
Thank you. No, my purpose for being here is to serve at the pleasure of the board.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, thank you, Dr. Desmore, appreciate you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions that we would have for Dr. Cubit McCoy regarding the regular agenda that has not been discussed at this time? Nobody? Ms. Gittens, did you have any?
I do, but I will ask them later. I was just curious about, in the capital budget, a couple of things about what's happening with certain projects, but I will ask that offline.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, Dr. Kim McCoy, did you have any other comments?
Madam Chair, just want to say thank you for the opportunity to fill in for Dr. Bernier. I'm sure he's viewing this as he's driving. Actually, he shouldn't be viewing this.
I hope not.
But we will continue to be responsive to the needs of the board. And as it relates to the hurricane update, as stated previously, we'll continue to do that, not just for your understanding, but for that of our community as well. So thank you. And then those are all of my comments.
Thank you. So we are at the point now for, that's all we have on our agenda for today, and we have good of the order, so I will start with Ms. Fisher. Do you have anything for good of the order?
No, I have nothing for good of the order today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Giovanelli?
I'll be brief, but I just wanted to say what it was an honor to work with my colleagues up here that are going to be starting their new journey. It was a pleasure to serve with you, and I look forward to seeing you around, I hope. I can't imagine that you would stop advocating just because you're not sitting up here. I believe that you will always advocate for our students in Lee County. And I just wanted to say, in the retirement get-together that we had yesterday, I met a lovely woman named Donna Schroll, who happens to be retiring literally as we speak today. And I just wanted to wish her well. I know she's going to be traveling, and I got to hear her story a little bit yesterday, and it was just an honor to actually get to hear her. She's had many years' experience in the business and of the district, and as well as I think at another place prior to Lee County, and I just wish her well. It was just actually really just nice meeting her and seeing like what we do and the value in that. That's hearing her speak yesterday made me feel better about what I do every day. And the value of our teachers and our staff in Lee County. So I just wanted to, thank everybody that does this every day, because it is serving our students and serving Lee County, and that's just really the ultimate job, honestly. So thank you for everything that everybody does every day. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Patrico?
I have nothing, thank you.
Ms. Gittens?
Okay, it's not going to be long, but I have to say something. It's my last opportunity. A couple of things. One thing about it kind of has to do with the agenda, but doesn't. Previously, we've talked about all the different initiatives and programs that we have. And I believe some time ago we did ask, is there a clearinghouse or a list somewhere of the different programs? I would really like to see, for example, like our reading programs. There's a couple of them that are in the agenda for this next week. And it would be nice to see by grade level what reading initiatives do we have. So I'm just throwing that out, and you can follow up on it or not after I'm not here. I want to address something. I watched the pre-org meeting yesterday, and while I was sitting there, and please no one take offense, it's not a personal thing against anyone, it's the general practice of it. I heard several people talk about the dysfunction of this board and how we couldn't accomplish things and take care of the needs of children because of the dysfunction of this board. And I would just like to say publicly, good luck to any of you coming up here and starting this new board and think that there will not be any, not dysfunction, but disagreement. And please don't mix the two words together. Disagreement is not dysfunction. Disagreement is that I see it differently than you do, or you see it differently than me. That's going to happen. I saw part of your training yesterday with the storming and norming and all of that. It's going to happen. And some boards more than others get into the storming and they never get out of Ian, but others do. But I wanted to bring it up because I felt the 4 years that I have been here and others that have been here longer that are leaving, it was a service of the heart to be here and to do and to serve the community and children. And I think that it's a disservice to this board as we sit here now to say that we were so dysfunctional we didn't achieve anything. So I'd like to remind you that we went through 3 superintendents, including selecting one that everybody seems to be quite pleased with. I'll just throw that out there. 2 hurricanes, 1 major one. We've had 2 times that a superintendent has had to take executive control of the district. No small feat for us or the superintendent, because it just means a lot of shifting and having things behind the scenes and decisions that are just like that. We went through a global pandemic. Global, not local, global, that is still going on in some way, shape, or form. And with the pandemic, for people to say, this dysfunctional board just didn't do anything. Yes, we got our children through a global pandemic. May not have been to everyone's liking, but we did it. And not, when I say we, not just us, but staff and everybody that was involved in the process. We have increased from the first time I sat on this board, from I think we started out with 90, 60, 80, something like that. We were in the double digits of students to over 103. And I know we've lost a few because of the storm, but that's a vast, vast advancement and addition. We have worked through a national staffing crisis in education, not local, not Lee County because of something that a dysfunctional board did. It's national, and it's still going on. We have worked through changes in statutes and education laws. All of those things, and sometimes it's like drinking from the fire hose, because it doesn't come one at a time like, okay, are you ready for the next mouthful? It just comes, and you never know when it will come. So I just want to make sure that our legacy of this board is not that we were so dysfunctional we did not accomplish anything. Those are things that we accomplished. I wish everyone the best that will be sitting up here. The view from here, it's very different. It's weighty, it's heavy. When it comes up on that board to click yes or no, abstain, yay or nay, it's a heavy, heavy decision because there are 103,000 students that will be affected by that click of a mouse. And thousands of employees that will be affected by the click of a mouse. So I didn't mean to get all heavy and deep into this, but my friends tell me, look, don't write anything down, just speak from the heart. This is from my heart. Take seriously sitting in this chair. As you're sitting here and in meetings, look out at the audience. When you're making comments, watch some of the people in the community and their facial expressions and their response to what you're saying. You're here representing them, so make sure that that representation is what they would have it to be. And unlike some people think, ask questions. That's why we're here. I have corporate experience, teaching experience, all kinds of experience. And I ask questions not necessarily because I don't know, but I ask questions to have it out in the open so everyone knows the answer. I feel like I'm graduating. I should play pomp and circumstance because I'm graduating to my next journey. And like I said yesterday, it's like pieces of the puzzle. Each thing that I've done in my life adds another piece to the puzzle and finishes out the picture of who Gwen Gittens really is and what she has done and left her legacy in life. I thank each of you for working with me. We've had moments of brilliance, individually and as a group, moments of sadness, moments of regret, but we made it through. And as I said, go back and listen to the things that we accomplished. So I leave you with serve openly, serve lovingly, serve thoughtfully, and serve inclusively. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens, and I have to say that was really beautiful, and thank you for those comments. Ms. Morgan?
Yeah, I have no comments, thank you. Ms. Jordan?
Ms. Fisher?
Okay. I'm just going to piggyback on Ms. Gittens. I just had the realization this is our last opportunity. And so during a time of continued growth and very unusual circumstances, the board members' efforts, along with those of our amazing staff, confirmed many accomplishments over the last several years. I want to welcome the newly elected board members and tell them, take care of yourself before you can take care of anyone else. Listen carefully, and be positive and appreciate the work of everyone that contributes so much to our 103,000 students, along with the community at large. And God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. I really appreciate that, too. I did want to note that Ms. Vaughn was not here today, and I should have stated that earlier. She was not feeling well. Otherwise, she would have been here with us today. So, Ms. Vaughn, if you're listening, we will miss you going to Texas. And everything that you brought, you've taught me a lot. And I have to say that the same with you, Ms. Gittens, and Ms. Fisher. I really appreciate everything that I've learned from both of you. And Ms. Donna, wish you the very best. I know she was our charter school queen, and I wish you the best in whatever you are doing, your next journey. And I know that Ms. Fisher, Ms. Gittens, Ms. Vaughn, they're not going away. They will be here. And I do appreciate, just everything that this team has done for the last 4 years. And I also wanted to say, which I had heard earlier right before coming up here, that the governor had written us a check for the almost $1.2 million for the vocational schools. Thank you, Mr. Pearson, for bringing that to my attention. We were not there this morning when the governor had handed that to the vocational schools, but that is much needed and appreciative as we move forward with our schools, our vocational schools. And I just thank you all and wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. Dr. Cupid McCoy, thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate you being here. And I'm going to ask Ms. Dupree-Bruno, did you have anything to?
Thank you,
fulfill the
Madam
order?
Chair. I do not. Thank you.
Okay. Well, seeing no other business to come before this board, this meeting is adjourned. And thank you. Be safe over the holidays. And we'll see you on the 22nd. Thank you.